programming and for 900 students. We currently have 1,307 students sharing one playground. So at recess, we have 250 children at a time. Third and fourth grade go into recess together. There's 10 classes at a time, whereas the other schools would have 4 classes at a time. So massively overcrowded, one play area. I know that this says playground, but we're really looking at a whole new play space. So we'll have 2 separate areas. So when we do have recess, one grade will be on one space, one grade on the other space, which will massively over-relieve that crowding.
And sort of to piggyback what Christine said, not only are those kids out, but you can see from the design of the schools, there are school classrooms all around the play area, so it gets loud for the children inside. So if we can move some of that noise away from the building, that'd be helpful.
That affects learning in the building because it's so loud outside with so many kids right outside those windows.
And another thing that prompted this, or sort of continued to show how crowded recess was we started talking to the nurses at the schools, and we had them track some information about how many recess-related injuries they were having per day, and it was really, I think it was 7 per day, which really was, 7 kids per day getting injured at recess that are going to the nurse, it's not a safe situation. So it really sort of like further supported what we were thinking and what we were feeling as parents, but and what the kids were telling us, but just to get that information was really kind of eye-opening for furthermore, so.
I have one more. Last year, my son was in 3rd grade, and his favorite day of the whole school year was when the 4th graders went on a field trip, because 3rd grade recess was the best day ever that day. So that just shows that it's just way too overcrowded.
Thank you. So as you all know, school committee members helped to organize a public forum moderated by our town moderator, Bob Hiss, back in early June. Had a mix of neighbors and school parents, and neither Betty nor I were able to be there. I was out of the country, and Betty was involved in the hiring for Pierce position at the time. But we heard that it was a challenging meeting, challenging and somewhat contentious. When we returned, we were told that this project had been assigned to the Facilities Advisory Committee. So enter us in mid-June. Over the summer, Betty and I, representing Facilities Advisory Committee, worked together with the Collingham-Collicott volunteer leaders to move this project forward. We also brought in David Ehrman, who's a Milton resident, to advise us on next steps. David is an executive coach and a seasoned group facilitator who we both know from town. I worked with him on the Temple project with the neighbors there. And we were fortunate to have David agree to facilitate our first meeting with the neighbors after the first draft plan was developed. So at David's advice, Betty and I divided up the list of abutting neighbors, direct abutters to the property, and called each one over the summer to listen to their concerns and suggestions. We knew that we had seen the materials and notes from the meeting and letters that they had written, but we wanted to be able to talk with them directly and hear their thoughts. We also conducted several months of due diligence to examine every possible way that we might be able to address this situation, several of which were suggested by the neighbors. And I won't go into those now, but if you're interested, I can share those later. Meanwhile, we were searching for volunteer architects. And it took a while for us to find, in August and then September, we were very fortunate to find 2 remarkable architects who volunteered their time to work with us on this project. Alex Fernandez, who is an architect who works as design director and principal at Gensler, and Bill Madden, who is a landscape architect who works as director of institutional practice and a senior associate at Lombardi Design. And both of these volunteer architects have children at the Glover School, but have volunteered their time and expertise to this important project. And for this, we are deeply grateful. They both brought their expertise and their professionalism to this project, and also brought great insight and confidence to everybody involved, including the neighbors who seemed relieved that we had professionals on board helping us. So quickly, what I'd like you to do is take you through the following presentation that was developed by Alex and Bill and shared with our abutting neighbors, and then I'll have some updates for you to those plans. So this was their presentation. Goes through design principles and aspirations, abutters, design concerns and suggestions, 2 options, grand vision, and then a phase strategy and next steps. And so the first question they asked is, what do we want for a playground or play experience? And these were the design considerations that our architects brought to the table after talking with us about it. One was to diversify the play experience so that kids have opportunities to do a variety of things outdoors during recess. That the design consider abutters' interest, that we're mindful of project cost, keeping in mind that all of the funds for this project need to be raised through fundraising activities, that we are able to implement a sustainable design strategy, consider donor opportunities, design for student safety and security, and to integrate curriculum into play experiences. And throughout this presentation, they added these blue and green circles indicating, the blue circle indicating potential monetary opportunities for donors, and the green opportunities for curriculum integrated into school curriculum. So also under design aspirations, we talked about play through exploration, invention, and imagination. And Bill Madden shared with us some projects that he's worked on at Milton Academy Lower School and at the University of Chicago Lab School, playgrounds that had spaces where kids were playing outdoors in nature and natural environments, and creative and simple ways for kids to be outside that are different than, certainly than what we have now at Cunningham Collicott. Then we shared with Alex and Bill what we heard from the neighbor abutters about their concerns and suggestions, and they talked about concern about lack of privacy and integrity of the neighborhood. They talked about concern about noise and close proximity to their homes. They were concerned about losing all the trees and loss of a tree canopy that provides some screening for their properties. And they were concerned about teenagers hanging out there at night. They also had some suggestions. A few of them were providing more definition for playground spaces, soccer and ropes courses and things like that. They suggested that we clear out the debris in the woods and integrate rope swings, et cetera, and provide some kind of setback between the abutters and the playgrounds. So those were their concerns and suggestions. And then these were the initial ways in which the design was done in response to the abutters' concerns. And in terms of noise, the plan maintains the existing tree canopy adjacent to the property line to assist in reducing noise levels. It also, as you'll see, locates active play in an area that's away from the direct abutting property line. As you'll see, there's an active play area and a quiet play area based on that need. Maintaining a minimum side yard setback of 40 feet, and I think now with our last version it's probably more than that, probably more like 50 to 60. And then the concerns about teenagers were talking about removing low tree branches from the ground up to remove vegetative screening to open the views from the parking area into the woods to reduce the likelihood of underage drinking on this piece of property, so that it wouldn't be like kids would be hiding in the woods. So this was the option one, or the grand vision. And as you'll see up above, there are two properties that extend a little further down into the space that are up against the property. And then the other abutters kind of arch around in the area. And what let me just move to this plan here. So if you see to the right side, the area that's designated as the quiet zone is where we would leave the existing trees and limb them up from the ground up, so that that buffer of screening from the existing trees would be able to remain there. But the assumption also would be that children would be playing in that area, but doing things that are less active than in the quote active zone, which is an area that would be covered with a synthetic turf, and that's put on a subsurface underneath it to help with drainage and the like, and that the entire area would be surrounded by fencing, so that children would be safe when they went in there. But this grand plan was wonderful, but we all thought about, well, we also need to get the funds for this, so we need to look at a phased-in strategy. But let me just share some of the ideas of things that could go in here, whether we do a phased strategy or the grand plan. One was the notion of having habitats that can be as elaborate or as simple as some of the ideas shown here, but that children could be engaged in learning about birds and feeding birds and the like. Ecology, that'd be opportunities to learn about insects and flowering plants and things that might bring butterflies. There was a suggestion of having a butterfly garden in there if we had time and space and resources to do that. Could be a wonderful addition to the area. Learning, that children would have the opportunity to learn about the nature of the trees, what happens to leaves in the fall, what kinds of different leaves the trees have, why do they change color, the whole variety of learning opportunities that are right outside their classroom doors. Observing, again, looking at the different kinds of leaves that can come from different kinds of trees. Habitats that they could learn about, the ways that different critters live in the world, and one of the suggestions in the grand plan was to have, what was the name of it, where worms grow? I forget, it was what was it? Compost. But yeah, there was a name for a place where you almost farm and grow worms.
I must have blocked that completely.
Yeah. That was in there. So as part of the grand plan, that could be for if there was staff that were really enthusiastic about. That's another opportunity. Space to gather. Picnic tables were featured, and this is just an example of an elaborate picnic table. But a chance for teachers to be able to bring their classes outside, to be able to do learning activities in the outdoors when the weather allows. Opportunities for them to express themselves. Of course, these are looking on blacktop, but there's still opportunities outdoors in nature for them to express themselves, to discover concepts about spatial relations and playing and finding each other and in nature. Opportunities to interact, to be together with other kids, to sit and just enjoy being outdoors, imagine. And one of the highlights of the plan involves a wall, a 2-foot-high wall that divides the space between the active and the quiet space. It really could make a clear separation between the two, but it could also be a great place to hang out. You know, just to be able to sit and visit with your friends, or to sit and watch a game that's going on, or whatever, walk along it, balancing, you know, there are just so many opportunities. Opportunities for quiet time, just to take a break from being in your classroom, opportunities for climbing. So moving on to, this is now the phased strategy, which is closer to the final plan, and I'm going to switch now over to the most up-to-date plan. Thank you, Glenn. Here we go. Can we zoom in on that at all? I don't know if we can view that. I can't zoom it in. Okay, so anyway, let me tell you a little bit about this. So I told you about the active and quiet zone. So these are some of the features of this plan. We're also talking about clearing out the debris in the woods, removing dead trees and other, you know, matter that doesn't need to stay, mulching in that area. The green playground turf will have the subsurface and drainage, can be used year-round, and will not get muddy when hundreds of kids are out running on it. The fence surrounding the area, oh, thank you. The final plan shows the fence goes around the entire area, will be 4 feet, except for the space of that directly abuts those where it says quiet zone. So those are direct abutters. They had talked about concern about kids from the neighborhood who had been traipsing through their yards and climbing over their fences to go wherever they were going, and so we agreed to put a 6-foot fence there to help to prevent that. There will be a gate down at the bottom. This doesn't have a pointer, does it? Yeah. Well, anyway, will be a path from the outside of the cafeteria where kids would cross over to the space, and there would be a gate right there. But then there will be 2 more openings in the wall. That's the red mark there, where there will be openings in between the quiet zone and the active zone for kids to get across. And so overall, the entire area inside the fencing would be around a half an acre. The final plan, which was revised after our next to the last meeting with the neighbors, reduced the synthetic turf area from what had been 9,400 square feet to 8,000 square feet. We changed the height of the fence, as I mentioned, to the 6 feet at the direct abutting homes. We added in some additional trees along the left and top edges of the green turf to help visually screen the new playground and reestablish the woodland edge. And then the landscape architect involvement will continue during the implementation of this project, which is an incredibly generous gift of this volunteer landscape architect. He has already agreed to, has he met with you all yet? Tomorrow, to advise our CC Green Space team on project management and construction going forward, and sort of how to navigate that process. He has agreed to review the extent of tree removal needed prior to their demolition, and that trees will be marked if they're in poor health or decline, or in a location that conflicts with the new turf area, so that it will be clear what trees are being taken out and why, based on the color that they're tagged with. And that those trees that were marked will be reviewed with the neighbors, so that the neighbors are sure to understand the full extent of the removals. And then he has also agreed to help select appropriate trees to be planted, taking into account things like maintenance demands, sun, shade, water, and growth rate. So he's really made a commitment to not walking away from this and helping us get through this process. We have one more image of the plan that is an aerial view that was developed for us that really gives you a sense of what the new playground will look like, play space will look like, and thank you. It really is just a lovely, lovely place of combining the green space to run around and hit balls and throw balls and, you know, whatever might take place on a green turf area, and then to have a whole range of possibilities for out in the wooded area. So this is the plan. We met again with the neighbors on December 3rd and reviewed this whole plan with them, and they were really quite pleased with what was developed, and were, as I mentioned, really reassured, I think, by having the architects involved and bringing their professional expertise to the table has really, really helped us along the way. So this is the plan, and it will likely be tweaked a little bit here and there depending upon the actual conditions when we get out there. You know, if a tree is in a certain place that really shouldn't come down, that we might, you know, tweak it a little bit to address those conditions on the ground. But this is the design concept that we're talking about. So what I'd like to do is turn it over to our parent team to talk about the next steps. And because after we're done with it here today, it's sort of off to these folks who've already started a lot of work on the next steps. And so if I could turn it over to you.
Can I ask one question before you turn it over?
Yeah.
I probably just didn't catch this, but why was the active space reduced from about 9,500 to 8,000 square feet?
Well, some of it had to do with the neighbors' concern about needing an adequate buffer.
Okay.
And, you know, would you say? Yeah, yeah.
We were pulling back from that side of from the abutters over there to give them a little bit more of a buffer zone.
Yeah.
And how much of a buffer zone is there now?
Well,
100.
yeah, it was 40 feet before the change, so I think it's more like 60 probably, because I think they pulled back 20 feet, didn't they?
Yes, I think that far post, the far corner, I think that's 60 feet there, and I think it's even, I think the 100 might be on the direct side to the left.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, yep, very good.
So our next steps, get your blessing on this, and then we will be fundraising through grant. We're researching, and we've already sent some letters out for some grants, and then we're going to be launching a capital campaign with the school communities, and so we are hoping we can, with your blessing, move forward to pull that off and start that in January.
So we have 945 families within the 2 schools. So we are hoping that everyone can donate whatever they can. And we will also, apply for the grants and see if we can raise this money by March, we could do the project over the summer and it could be open for the fall. So August 2020.
So
that would be the hope.
Would that, like, the first phase would be available? Would you do the first phase over the summer?
What you see here.
Yeah, phase one.
So this overall design, some of the nitty-gritties, the picnic tables, maybe that would be, but doing all of this, the butterfly garden,
Okay.
would be something, those sorts of things from that first grand plan. Some of those would be added in, like phased in later, but getting this additional space available to the students would be the plan. And that would include the sort of quieter wooded play area over here, as well as the active zone.
Clear the land, level the land, put the fence up, do the surfacing, do the trees on this section over here, and get it ready to go so kids can actually play on it for the fall would be the goal, if we can raise the money. So it's all contingent on how much money we raise and how quickly. So we're hoping there's a lot of urgency. When this started, we did a petition, and in 24 to 48 hours, 450 people signed the petition saying they needed this to be done. So there's tons of parent support behind it. So we're hoping we just roll with that and we can get it done.
I will say, though, that this image, to me, was transformative because it really gives you a sense of how great it's going to look when this is done. And it's going to change the whole back area of the Cunningham Collicott School, very much like my son went to Glover, just like the outdoor classroom that Margaret Everhart spearheaded. And both of the volunteers that helped us with this project also were involved in the Glover's playground that they just did renovations on. So, I think this really sang to me when I saw this. And I know Mr. Fernandez did a similar drawing for the neighbors to see what it would look like from their backyards, so they could see the buffer and they could visualize what it's going to be. So I'm really excited about this, and you guys really deserve a lot of credit.
And I think
for
the neighbors
spearheading this.
are excited now. They're very happy and pleased with it all, and they said they will basically help us as long as we communicate with them. They'll help us with whatever we need.
Yeah.
Big turnaround.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we shared this design, a little bit in the past week or so. We have parent-teacher conferences, so it's a nice opportunity to sort of start getting it out there. And parents are like in awe of it. I mean, they just think this is outstanding. And so I really think we have a lot of support, and we're, sort of already trying to leverage that.
Those of them watching at home, we want them to know we want to get this done quickly. So, and it can be done quickly. I mean, Bill and Alex told us 3 to 4 months is how long it would take to actually build it. So let's say 4 months.
Anyone else questions?
Do you have do you have Dr. Donnie, did you?
Nope.
I'm just curious about how much do you want to raise, like, what's the fundraising goal to get the project going by the summer and to have it ready in September 2020?
$275,000.
75.
The majority of that is the playground surfacing.
Right, the green
It's about
stuff,
$100,000 for just the surfacing.
Right.
And the rest of it would be the fence. Trees cost a lot of money to
They
take them
do.
down, to put them up,
Yeah.
to trim them. We all know from owning homes how much it costs. So
The wall.
the wall.
Beautiful wall.
The beautiful wall.
But
But with 945 families, if you think about it, it equates to $300 per family. So
On that note, I'd like to say that I think that you might want to cast that net a little wider than just Cunningham Collicott, because as you saw, the amazing volunteer spirit of 2 Glover parents in Alex Fernandez and Bill
yes.
Madden. which just says everything to me about this community. It's just amazing. It's one thing to volunteer a lot of time and energy when your own kid is going to benefit, and it's a whole other thing when you're doing it knowing that somebody else's family is going to benefit. So I'd like to personally thank them, but I think you should cast that net and, put it out on Milton Neighbors,
That's the plan too. That's the
do
second half of the
everything
plan.
to try to get the
Yes.
community involved, because these are all of our kids. And if-
Grandparents, neighbors,
And if anybody
uncles,
at
anybody.
Glover could see what recess is like at the Cunningham Collycott now, I think they would be willing, ready, willing, and able to open their wallets to make sure that the kids had a beautiful place to play there too. I do.
Great point. Thank you.
And my point was to reiterate everything that you had said. This is a phenomenal success in terms of process management. I'd like to thank you, and I'd like to thank the Facilities Advisory Committee on how they have been able to engage the neighbors and the various stakeholders and really turn this around from where it was a few months ago. This looks phenomenal, and I'm excited for your success.
Thank you.
Yeah, so before I make the motion, I too, I can't thank Ada and Betty enough through the Facilities Advisory Committee in partnering and sort of leading with you all, with your CC group, to, make this come to fruition. Member Eberhardt and I were at some of those early meetings, and and anyone, all of us here were town meeting members. We've all been active participants, and anything when it comes to change in any area of Milton, whether it's a commercial tax, it's a commercial tax-based growth situation, whatever. Your number one issue is the abutting neighbors, right? Because of their concerns of their environment, where they bought the house. So the fact that, Ada, along with Betty, and you have made that happen, anything's possible after that. I mean, for you, Christine, to say basically now that they want to help make this happen, as opposed to where they were last
They said
spring.
they'd help us water the trees.
Yeah, I mean, it's great.
Yeah,
It's
it's
great.
great.
I mean, I think that.
Thank you, neighbors.
More than any of us.
Yeah, that's
It's right there.
that's awesome. I can't thank you enough. And and to what Dr. Craig had said, I just think again it shows no community. I always say this to Superintendent Gormley, no school district is perfect, no community is perfect, but I really do think we have a great place here, and that is represented in the fact that steps are being made to create this, which is greatly needed, for the children of these two schools. So, we're here to support you and wish you the best. And Superintendent Gormley.
I'll make you
I think
a
it's
giving
amazing
tree.
out of
There's
that initial meeting that the four of you joined together with Christina Lang.
Mhm.
So you are to be complimented and thanked. And when you think of it, generations of children are going to benefit from this green space. It's really breathtaking. You formed with Ada and Betty and became a team. And I know I'm the 10th person to say it, but Mr. Fernandez and Mr. Madden stepping forward and working with you collaboratively to bring it home and make it a home run, it's very, very exciting. But to think of the thousands of children forever, and it's really beyond the playground, even phys ed classes beyond the playground, to be able to go outside on green space, it is very, very moving. So on behalf of the district and the children and the teachers, and you four, and Christina Lang and Ada and Betty, you were a group to be reckoned with, and you worked so collaboratively. I thought Deb Lynch was going to take that piece of green.
She has it.
Does she? Every meeting she went to, she slapped down that piece of green turf, and you all had a dream and a vision. Very exciting, and the timing. And I know in the absence of Jonathan Redden and Holly Concannon, they too are part of the team, and they are equally, they became completely converted, didn't they? They are so excited. So on behalf of the district, to each one of you,
Yeah.
Also, just want to say that we brought this last week to the Facilities Advisory Committee,
That's right.
who is recommending to you their unanimous support. So just,
That's great.
I'd just like to thank the district overall, and all of the support that we've received has been really heartening. And I think that we've been able to coalesce with so many different collaborators because we all have children's best interest in mind. And I think we're all on the same page when it comes to that. So
Yeah.
thank
Yes,
you.
we
That's
are.
great.
Thank
This is
you.
great.
Yes, we are.
So
All
go
right.
ahead and
So
proceed
I'll-
on that part.
So, I'll make a formal motion. So, I'll make a formal motion to approve this plan that, the Cunningham Collicott Green Space move forward, on the landscape and creation of, this new play space for Cunningham and Collicott schools.
I'll have Ms.
Second.
Romanhurst second.
There we go.
I'll third it.
Okay, all those in favor? Unanimous. Yay.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you, and good luck.
I-
Invite us,
Yeah,
invite us to
I
your
said-
fundraising
Yeah.
function.
Yeah, you need to like make sure you send
coming.
us the
Yeah, but I have to say,
the
as you're
fundraising
leaving,
stuff and the
I
parties
just-
and the.
It made me, Superintendent Gormley made me think, I mean, and again, I know that you guys doing this, the catalyst, because you guys are in the thick of it, in the midst of it now, but like for those of us up here, I mean, all the way back to Ada and Betty and Glenn, when they were parents, when the schools were crumbling, and then I moved in and I got involved in the town when they were, but the catalyst is like, my kids are here and this needs to be improved, but it has been joyous to see that all these years later, that we have all these 6 buildings. I know we have to build another one now, but if you build it, they will come. But that, people will say to us, no, kids don't know what it's like not to go to to have nice facilities, to have these great auditoriums, to have, this field house. Like, we're like, well, we have a field house. We'll just, we have a field house the size of a whole field, and you kind of see that when you were a parent, your kids didn't have, that was the catalyst, but all these years later that it's just a norm that people come in and they have, like, remember Eberhard, that beautiful space at Glover. So,
Yeah.
it's great what you're doing, but like when you're old like me and all your kids are up here, you'll be able to go by and say like, hey, like, look at the next generation, benefiting from that. And it does even give you more joy to see, like, community-wide how helpful it is. So thank you again for all that.
Yeah,
It's great.
thank you so much. Yeah.
Sheila, we'd just like to point out the 3 of us are still parents.
Oh, elementary school parents is what I said. Elementary school. Okay. So, and back to Ada for the next presentation.
So much fun. So many happy memories. All by now.
What would you,
Okay.
what were you doing next?
We're doing
She already
Ada.
said it's back to Ada.
Back to Ada
Shared
to just do
space.
the
Shared
the
space.
5-year
Yeah.
plan.
Okay, shared space.
Mary's beyond excited.
I know.
I think she's more
She's
excited
wanted
than
it.
anyone.
She's
She's
wanted.
wanted this more than like
Yeah.
anyone, such a
Yes.
fun time.
So funny.
Okay, well, as you all know, we have an enrollment crisis in our schools. We're bursting at the seams. The town meeting has established a school building committee, and that committee is in action and making plans to try to build a new school sometime in the next 5 years. But the short-term plan between now and then remains in our lap. And so through the Facilities Advisory Committee, we work with Glenn and Mary and Karen to try to develop a plan for how to address those short-term space needs moving forward. So what I'd like to do is turn it over to Glenn, if you're okay with that, to walk people through the plan.
So this is a plan that was presented to the Facilities Committee, Facilities Advisory Committee, 2 meetings ago. They gave us some feedback on it. We changed it, made some revisions to it, and was approved by them at their last meeting. It's based on the assumption that as we currently have, we will expect 17 classes of kindergarten over the next few years. If that assumption is to change, then this plan obviously changes, but that's been the last our recent experience, and so that's the assumption we're working under. With that, this year, current year, we have 16 fifth grade classes. So assuming there are 17 kindergartens next year, we will need one more classroom at the elementary level next year. Similarly, this year's grade 4, which will be rolling off in 2 years, has only 15 classes. It's the last grade that has only 15 classes in it. So in that year, again, assuming 17 kindergartens come in, we'll need 2 more classrooms. In 3 years, when the current grade 3 rolls off with its 16 classes, we'll need a 4th classroom then. Grade 2 currently has 17, so 4 years out, again, that'll be a steady state sort of piece. And in 5 years out, grade 1, the current grade 1 with 16 strands rolling off would require a 17th. So over the next 5 years, we would need 5 classrooms, although not exactly 1 a year, 1 next year, 2, 1, 0, 1. So, but basically a classroom a year for the next 5 years. So the question becomes, how do we accomplish this? Next year, for the fall, again, assuming 17 kindergartens, the new classroom would be at the Tucker. We have an office that currently has 7 staff in it, various different providers. That's just a room full of desks where they bring in students occasionally, but they have to schedule that so you're not providing services by more than one provider in the room at the same time. That room would become the teacher's room. The current teacher's room would become a classroom. Those 7 people will have to be relocated, whether a desk in the library, a desk in the back of an existing classroom, somewhere. But those 7 people will have to be relocated to other spaces to provide their functions.
What's the square footage on this teacher's room that will become a classroom? Do you know?
It's not, I don't have the exact square footage off the top of my head. It would not be a big classroom. It's
Okay.
not a full-sized kindergarten or even first grade classroom. It's be a slightly undersized classroom.
Okay.
It wouldn't be the 900 square feet. So that would handle next fall. And then the question is, what happens in 2 years when we need 2 classrooms? And so part of this, we actually, this is part of the change that was involved with the Facilities Advisory Committee 2 meetings ago. We had originally, as part of our plan, looked at using, making some space on the 4th floor of the Cunningham building, not for classrooms, but to free up classrooms. And initially, we had put it on the capital request for fiscal '23. We decided it needed to move forward, so we've actually moved it forward on the capital request to fiscal '22, some money for renovation on the 4th floor of Cunningham. The plan would be in the fall of '22, assuming the money is then available, we would start construction of basically a large teacher's room up on the 4th floor of the Cunningham. During the construction, the 2 current teachers, the Cunningham and Collicott teachers would have to share 1 teacher's room because we would take 1 teacher's room for a classroom. At the time construction upstairs is finished, they would then have two teacher's rooms again. But for a while, they'd be living a large number of people with 1 teacher's room. And not necessarily terribly close to their classrooms, because obviously it's a large building. Somebody is going to have a reasonable walk to a teacher's room. So that would do one of the rooms in 2 years out in fiscal '22. The second room would likely be the Glover Music Room, which would be converted to a classroom. And music would have to be relocated into the cafeteria at non-lunch times, in classrooms, wherever, right? But it would have to be relocated. In fiscal '23, 3 years out, we would then take the second teacher's room at the Cunningham Collicott, and all the teachers, there would be only the 1 teacher, the 1 new teacher's room up on the 4th floor of Cunningham. Again, not necessarily convenient if you're a teacher on the 1st floor of the Collicott near the gym. You'd probably need a bicycle to get up there in time to have lunch and back, but it would be a new space, and the advantage of having staff on the fourth floor, it certainly outweighs the issues of having children up on the fourth floor, even
Right.
for short periods of time.
It's also less expensive, I think, than
Yes, I mean, you could
in classroom.
build a space up there, we believe reasonably, it'd be a reasonable, straightforward thing to do. We would have to deal with some plumbing
I was
issues.
gonna say like.
There was plumbing up there. Bringing water up there for a sink probably is not an issue. We'd have to investigate whether, bathroom facilities and things like that up there is more complicated. But there certainly was plumbing up there. There are leads leading up there. The question is where they currently go, but we'll have to work all that out.
Do we have any general figure on what the conversion of that fourth floor space?
Bill Ritchie suggested a placeholder of $250,000.
Okay.
But that's just a round number.
I know it's a round
and-
number, but it's substantially less than what it would have cost to convert that into classroom space
Right.
as
Definitely.
well. So-
And the bulk of that is, it would almost certainly, it would certainly require the services of an architect in order to be approved by the building board. So that's a large part of it, of the cost. It's not just construction, but the architectural costs as well. And then the following year, that would take us 3 years out. Then the 5-year out, since we don't need one in the 4th year, that 5th classroom, we would be looking at partitioning the Cunningham end of the current Cunningham Collicott Library, because at that point, there really are no other spaces. But the thought was to try to avoid impacting the library space there for as long as possible.
Yep.
And so the intent was to try to push the 4th floor project at Cunningham forward as far as possible. And this is realistically as far forward as we can expect to even attempt it. This, as I say, has several assumptions built in. One is basically a flat 17 students per kindergarten for the next few years. The other is that we would in fact get capital money in 2 years to do this. I mean, that's not a sure thing either. So, I mean, there are, all sorts of issues here. I'd say the most solid piece of this is what will happen next fall, should we need 17 classrooms.
Okay.
And this, as a plan, is the plan for now. But life happens between now and then, and we'll see how it all plays out.
So I want to ask a question, with like the 250,000, for capital, to renovate the 4th floor. So you said that you've put that in for FY '22. I know, that that we're presenting this, and, do we do an official vote that we agree with this, or are we just presenting this as our recommendation at this time?
It's not a
We
vote
didn't
on the
put a vote.
agenda.
Yeah, all right, okay. So my question is, though, I still would like it, Springtown meeting, to present this to the body of town meeting, that this is what, the interim space, needs are, and what we're going to do, with the fact that we've put in a request to Capital for that. But I just like the school building committee, and people know that there's all of the roadshow that we did about enrollment in space and that we need a new building. We need to market the fact that this is not a part of the school building committee, because a lot of people automatically think that it is. Even when we went to just do our yearly budget at Warrant the other night, several Warrant committee members were asking about school building already, and funding and money, and, and they were sidelined to be like, that's a different topic, and what have you. But I still think that we need to present it, what the plans are with the 17 strands, that we've put the money in capital, but like you say, if capital doesn't fund it, then what are we going to do? I want the townspeople and the body of town meeting to be aware that this is what our strategic sort of plan is on this 5-year, but that this is not gonna be covered under the school building, group, and that this is, and the funding's not gonna be part of that, and it's different. So, I think that even when we present our budget, I know we'll talk about that with, select board and warrant committee, but we also want to do a presentation on this 5-year plan as well, so that everyone's aware of it.
And if I might, I appreciate the principals were all involved, Dr. Pavlicek, back and forth with facilities twice, and Dr. Spalding had input. It doesn't eliminate any programs, and that 4th floor college, Cunningham is not an imposition because teachers walk their students to library. It's a very short walk down the hall up to the 4th floor. There is also an elevator on both sides of the building, and if you get to the 3rd floor, you can then get to the end of the hall. So it would be workable.
Any questions or concerns, or what's the?
Just hope we never hit 18.
Yeah,
Well, I was
that's
just
the
gonna
number
say,
one, yeah, that's
if
what I was
we
gonna
hit
say.
18, then where are we gonna put them?
Back to the drawing board.
By the time
We'll
we
have satellite.
exhaust the classrooms in fiscal year 25, I hope we have a school, another school building, because I don't know what we're gonna do if we don't. There's nowhere to put them.
Yeah.
So, but just to discuss out loud, I mean, just for instance, say this summer, I don't know, there's 10 new families that move in and they have X amount of kids each, which is not saying that that won't happen, and you have 18 strands for next year. Then, you know, I mean, I do just think we have to be, I mean, can you speak, Ada, a little bit on facility, and Betty, about school building? I know that they're building in the real estate situation of, is there any way to work with them to say how many houses were bought? I know you can't say like how many families were there, but I mean, that's the big disconnect, like we've always said, right? That, and I know you guys mentioned that, big home sales 2 years later, bump in enrollment. As opposed to this many kids were born 5 years ago, so this is what we anticipate, our registration to be for kindergarten. And we know it's the whole, 0 to 5, let's move from wherever we are to Milton to get into the school system. Is that just still a vague unknown? There's no way we can track that?
Well, the only good news in that is that the current NASDAQ projections, which just came out in October, indicate that home sales in the first 9 months of this year lagged a little behind the home sales in the first 9 months of last year. And so it may not, the spike of last year doesn't look like it's going to repeat itself this year, which gives us some hope that we'll be able to stay where we are at 17. We have kindergarten information night coming up. We've had some online enrollment already. We'll have better numbers probably come January. We'll have early February, we'll have a better idea of where we're likely to end up. But, no, you're right, 10 families with 3 kids each could move in July.
Yeah.
It's impossible to predict that.
Ada, you have one?
One thing that I did notice, that we got a narrative from NASDAQ that was informative about the process, and one of the things that they did talk about that I wonder if we shouldn't investigate a little bit further is that some school districts look more closely at the preschool population to help inform the projections for kindergarten. We do that a little bit here, but we obviously know how many preschool families we have enrolled in schools and how many we have on waiting lists, but I don't know that we have gone as far down that road as some other school districts may.
Right, so you mean like even maybe through Milton Early Educate, maybe partnering with them to reach out to all the privates and get a better ballpark of what their enrollment is?
So in some communities, the annual census actually does a census of everybody. Milton only does, Milton Town Census is only 18 and older. So the annual town census doesn't tell us how many 4-year-olds there are, how many 3-year-olds there are. But it's, something to investigate whether that's something that the town might want to do as part of its census form, is to ask the question down a little lower so we have some demographics to work with.
Right.
And,
Chair,
I'm sorry.
Chair,
Yeah,
I'll just point out in terms of your problem solving that
yeah.
one of the classrooms slated for the second year of this plan, which is the Glover Music Room, the use of that as a classroom could be moved up a year. So if you need,
I didn't hear what
if you
you
need
said.
18 classrooms next fall, not only do you use the space at Tucker, but you then use the music room at Glover.
Would
That-
be the plan.
That puts you
Yeah.
in a bind for the next year, all the more, but that's your plan B.
Mm-hmm, okay, that's excellent, yeah. Well, do you think that, so after kindergarten information night, we revisit this just to get a better idea? I mean, so if we're leaning towards the 18, because I think from Dr. Donahue's, recommendation, even for town meeting, I'd, like to be able to, cascade that out so that they know where we're at and, and when we think we're gonna need the money, basically. Does that sound like a plan?
Sounds great.
Yeah, I mean, so is it it's probably, so we asked for the capital funds for the fourth floor for 2 years out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So regardless, would we still convert that space into, like, isn't it advisable to convert that space into usable space
Mm-hmm.
and just like, and have it as space that we can use regardless of like what's happening?
Well, it depends on what you're using it for.
Right, but because even if we're still bursting at the seams, it doesn't really matter. Like, we have 18 or 17 next year, we still have too many children in too small a space. 1,300 children versus 900 that it's designed for. I'm just thinking that we should think about, maybe that becomes a permanent teacher space, and we have more flexibility for preschool, for whatever, for reducing class size, I don't know, for treatment space, for however we want to think about the fact that we have that space. If we use it, then that gives us more flexibility for a district that's bursting. Even if the school building doesn't happen, let's say, for whatever reason, we still have too many kids and not enough space, and no way to grow any programming that Susan Maselli wants to grow, that the preschool could grow. We have no options. So,
But with the fourth, but with the fourth grade space though, when we were looking at it, last year, when we were just looking at all the different options of what to do, what about the situation though that if we ever, I mean, I know we're like, it's an adult space, it's a teacher space, it's not all day, it's up and down and back and forth and what have you, but if it ever became a space that, I know you take the elevator up like to the third and do one level of stairs, like, can it be converted for, I don't know, like a specialist space or what have you?
When I was the principal of the Cunningham, I had art, music, and
I'll
library
say.
up there.
it was a museum.
Yeah,
It also was a museum, but, so that way, students weren't on the fourth floor all day, but different groups of students went up over the
right,
stairs.
right, so I was wondering, but is the concern though with like the fire, you guys were
A lot
evaluating
of
it,
work to be done to find out.
yeah, to do that?
I don't think the fire department has a ladder long enough to get up there.
Well, that was certainly the situation when we were building them.
Yeah.
The fire department at the time, when we were doing the school building project, was, very much opposed to us putting students up there,
Makes
simply
sense.
because in case of emergency, it's very hard
Yeah.
to evacuate if the stairs, et cetera, are not available.
Right. No,
Um,
yeah. I'm just thinking that we talk a lot about the future, but our current situation remains the same
Yep.
regardless. And just like we need
Yeah, I agree.
the outside space,
We need it
we need
inside,
space
too.
inside for some flexibility, for anything.
Part of the reason
You know,
you
like-
need to build that green space, Ada, like you said, so that they can just be, is because it's very claustrophobic inside,
Hey,
right?
think about like, they talked about those first grade rooms on that. I don't know, I'm just thinking, it's
Yeah.
space. I know it's not ideal, and I don't, certainly if it's a safety issue, then
When we,
forget about that. But-
in the last school building project, the 8th grade came to the high school library for a year,
Yeah.
and there were these dividers. So, when we spent a lot of time on this 5-year plan, per the chairperson's request, the least optimal is the last one.
Of course, yes.
So you would never do that for longer than a year. because you have the library, you know, with students
Yeah,
going in and out of library, and then the wall, Glenn explained, the wall can't go to the top.
Right.
And so, I remember those 8th grades, and there is a noise and instruction, impact on instruction.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
And because they're temporary, the money that we're
Right.
spending
Right.
is money that we're gonna have to tear down, as well. So it's just not, it doesn't make good fiscal sense either.
One more thing with that is the only thing that can come out of capital for the ask is the 4th floor, but the partitions for the library for fiscal 2025 it's not enough money to come out of capital.
It would probably have to come out of operating.
Yeah.
The advantage, the one piece about the 4th floor, though, is it would be bonded capital. It wouldn't have
Yes.
to come out of free cash.
Okay.
So that might make it a little easier to get. But it's still, it's certainly not a slam dunk by any.
I also think that this is something that we should think about sharing with the finance subcommittee as well, because they've been asking about that, just so that they can have that on their radar. You know, so they know what to expect, like especially that would have to be regular operating, even though it can be bonded, but, you know, kind of a
I
strategic.
think as of this moment, the finance subcommittee is aware.
No, she means that.
No, the town, I'm sorry, the town, what do we call it?
The select board.
The joint
Yes, the
finance
joint one
subcommittee.
with
The one you're
Between
on.
the
Yeah,
select board.
the other one.
The other
The
one,
other one,
yeah.
yeah,
But,
the
because
one you're on.
they've been asking about this, you know, periodically as we meet.
You're
And so I
correct.
think that it would be good to put that.
Yeah,
there.
but I
End of
also.
January.
Oh.
Mhm.
No, I was just going, I'm sorry,
Mhm.
the end of January, we'll have a better handle on the number.
Okay.
And I also just want to support your idea of making sure that we present this at town meeting,
Mhm.
because I think we can't take our foot off the pedal in terms of the urgency, and this really illustrates the urgency right here,
Mhm.
so.
Mhm. And so thank you to the administration and to the Facilities Advisory Committee for working on this. It was my one thing back in August that I wanted this by the end of, by
Holidays.
Christmas, by the holidays, that.
Merry
so-
Christmas, Sharon.
Yeah, that we
Hold your
have.
coffee, okay? Wrap it up, we should have put a bow on
I know,
it.
really.
No, I think
No,
it's
it's
good,
important
so,
work.
you know,
We're
so
we're
it
making
just
light of
shows
something
that
that's
we
important.
we have something, we have a plan, and I'm very grateful
Always
for
good
all
to
the
have a
hard
plan.
work. Okay.
What's next?
Moving on, superintendent's report.
Very briefly, I'm putting out a blog tomorrow, so I'll hold happenings, but I would like your approval. We usually do it at the beginning of January, but we're getting lots of calls. People are aware that Labor Day is very late in September. Parents have to, and guardians have to arrange for camps for their children, their vacations, so I'm asking for approval on the 2020-21 school year calendar. And you might remember a noted change that in this contract negotiations, the 7 hours that was in the contract that was done beyond the school day with pre-approval was put into a professional development day. And so I'm very happy to tell you that on the national election, there won't be any children in the Milton Public Schools, but there will be teachers here. That's not a day with voting taking place at the Cunningham, Tucker, and Milton High School that, especially a national election, that we should have school. The teachers are already excited about and working with Dr. Spalding on planning for the 9th, similar to the conference that they had this year on a range of topics. And we would put this out pending your approval. And again, many of these dates when the half-days are according to the contract. Dr. Pavlicek and Dr. Spalding.
When is it Tuesday, so the 3rd? The 3rd is no school, but you're saying in November?
Yes, the national election.
Yeah, okay,
For students.
yeah. Okay.
And so, again, I'll bring you back to the teachers come back on August 31st and September 1st. Students 1 through 12 come back September 2nd and 3rd. That's really late. This year, this is, would you say it's as late as it ever would be?
It's as late as it can be.
Can be. And then our kindergartners join us on the next Tuesday, and we're back to school.
So in 2021, last day of, well, it's still, last day of school is still only the 22nd, which isn't much further than what this year it's the 20th, right? I think, maybe the 18th?
I think it's the
It's earlier.
17th.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Pending snow days.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
Don't
It's
anybody
late,
make
late.
plans.
Hope for no snow.
I know.
So thank you.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the 2020-2021 school year calendar.
Second.
Any questions, concerns, any other further asks? No?
Have we checked on when Yom Kippur begins? Is it the evening before the 28th, or?
Yeah, typically, then we've got the day off on the day of.
Yes.
Okay,
We
so I
work
just want to
with
make sure.
Rabbi Benjamin.
Oh, we do? Okay, then we're all set.
He's
Thank you.
given us the calendar
He
for
did,
the next
okay.
10 years out.
Now he
Yeah.
consults
Great.
He's
us.
been wonderful with us.
And you're welcome for having the Monday for Yom Kippur this year for a long weekend.
Yeah.
And as everybody remembers, working with the rabbi, we have Yom Kippur off, and if Yom Kippur is on a weekend, then we have the first or second day of Rosh Hashanah. Great.
Okay, all those in favor? All right, unanimous, all set.
Great.
Okay, next, Chair's report. I'm gonna do B first and then go to A. So, on B, in your packet, we have a schedule of upcoming budget presentations. So I'd like to, as I say, have our roadshow. I understand that not all of us can make all of them, and that's totally fine. I can make these dates, and, if we have others to be there, that would be great to field questions. But I do want to be able to have at least 3 presentations of what we presented to the warrant committee, what our ask is based on the needs of the district. And I think it would be good to do them in January and February, so that what we used to do in recent legacy presentations is that when you go around, ask to be realistic, to Dr. Craighead, that if we did have to maybe strike 1 or 2 of them, even though everything's needed, but if we're forced with making decisions, what is the feedback from the parent community about what they would most, be willing to maybe give up under the given circumstances, and what are their greatest wants, and et cetera, et cetera. I think it's important. So, so Superintendent Gormley, along with Charlene, reached out to all of the principals to ask when the availability would be. We looked at the school district-wide calendar, et cetera, et cetera. So these dates, there's nothing else on it, and they're available. So we're going to do a Glover Tucker night, a Collicott Cunningham night, and then a Milton High School and Pierce Middle School night on the 28th, 29th, and the 12th. So,
Can I just ask a question? This is like, so when we go to these budget presentations, we're presenting what we're asking, what we presented at warrant committee?
Correct.
With no knowledge of what we're actually getting?
correct. But what you do is you say, what I want to do is present to the parents what our process is, because I don't know if we've done that in the recent years, so to explain to them about how we bring the site, all of the schools, the site councils to finance, athletics, community schools, everyone that we bring them all to finance, at the start of the school year, and have them present what they feel their needs, wants are for the district, and then how finance, based on, all of those asks and the reality of the budget of what we then have to present, usually by December 1, to the warrant committee, and the beginning preliminary to our joint finance subcommittee that we currently have with the select board finance subcommittee, along with the Strongtown administrator. And then we do a presentation to the warrant committee, usually in the month of December. And then during the months of January and February and March, it sort of continued to be massaged and worked out and back and forth with all the other town departments' budgets about realistically what they're going to approve overall.
Okay, so then when are we going to, when will we know from the warrant committee what is actually going to go on to the warrant?
I would say mid to late March,
Mid to late March.
because you
Okay,
have a publication deadline. They have to write it up and so forth and get it in homes. So realistically, it's got to be by the the warrant has to be in printable shape by the end of March, by third week of March.
Okay. And then after that, so let's suppose they go with the 3% cut that they were talking about the other night at warrant committee. Then we go back out?
I don't know if we go back out. I mean, what we do put in is, we put in our presentation when we go out to the parent community, or the school community, I should say, we're going to say, you know, this is, we'll talk about the straight rollover, what we have formally put in for our ask to the warrant committee, and also what we've preliminarily been asked by the Strong Town Administrator as far as doing a 3% cut on our regular staff. And we're going to inform the parent community that that's what was asked of us, and that is what we've done. And, you know, but we've showed that it would be 25, currently 25 full-time staff positions, if that was asked of us. Inform them of that, inform them that that is not what we, of course, want, and that, you know, show them what we've asked for based on the needs of the community and all of the different schools and the administration evaluating it, along with finance subcommittee. So it's to educate them in what we're doing, and what to educate them what we're doing, what's going on, and what we may have to do, as far as maybe making some cuts from that initial ask and getting their feedback. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
My suggestion is that we publicize these nights and not just invite the parent community, but invite town meeting members.
Absolutely.
And
Everybody.
folks that would like to hear about the school.
That's a
Yep.
great idea, Betty, because if town meeting members are more informed about it, then they can either have different kinds of questions at town meeting, or maybe answer their questions beforehand.
That's an
Right.
excellent recommendation. Maybe then, do you think the best way to do that, Betty, would to maybe to reach out to Susan Galvin to
Bingo.
like,
I think
yeah,
that-
I mean, I'll take that upon to, we'll do that for next steps, to reach out to her with the dates and to cascade them out to the, because they email town meeting members now too, right? Or they still do hard copies in the mail. They'll send it.
Yes, they will.
An email, okay, on her behalf, so I think that would be great, so we'll do that. And do Milton Neighbors, and have Stephanie O'Keefe work on all the marketing.
And
as
these
well.
will be posted as our school committee meetings.
Yes.
So is everyone okay on the dates?
I just put them in my phone.
I mean,
Hard to
again,
know
if
what
you
that's
can't
gonna
make
look
all,
I'll be there, it's still,
yeah, it's still, but we'll
Yes.
have enough of us at each one that we'll be fine. But I
Yeah.
just wanna let you know what the dates are.
Yeah.
So, I'm not gonna necessarily vote on it, I'm just, they are what they are, that's when where we're at, and, I just wanted to let you know that we'll be doing it. And then, to that point, I'll go back to number A. As was stated earlier, the three superintendents, along with myself and Dr. Craighead, did our initial budget presentation that we voted on as a committee to the warrant committee on Monday night, with, again, what all of our asks are. I think overall, I think the presentation went well. There was a lot of good questions from the warrant committee, preliminary questions, good discussions. We left with them saying that they would do their best to accommodate what our asks are, and that we definitely will, I'm sure, meet with them again. As we said, it was just our first meeting, and I think I'll continue to reach out, I'll maybe to Chairman Asher, to say, like, you know, maybe do you want us to come back at end of February? I'm assuming, did that usually happen, Betty, as a former, you know, warrant committee member?
Typically, too, that the people who are on the subcommittee for the schools will come up with questions from other members, and then Bishop Glenn helps
Right.
get the answers and feedback back to them.
So maybe what we'll do in the interim is say, do you want us to come back as a whole in February? And then maybe should I ask, I know that whether or not they've done this, but usually they break up into subcommittees, correct, Betty, that who does police, who does fire? Maybe also ask him if his members of the school subcommittee on warrant would maybe want to visit our finance subcommittees in January and give the dates to them, and then they can come to ask those questions in January.
I think
And then-
Monday night they were just forming the subcommittee.
Right, so then maybe in the latter part of January. So those will be our next steps on keeping the communication open with the warrant committee members on that. That sounds good. So Mary, maybe between Friday, we'll look at dates just to throw out to them, okay? All right, next is finance subcommittee.
Okay. First of all, I don't know how many of you had the opportunity to peruse the grant internal control manual, but it's fascinating reading, and I recommend it highly to all of you. We need to have this manual approved. The town auditors strongly recommended that we do this. They require it actually for entities that receive federal grants, and we do. It's just good policy. And so, first of all, I'd like to thank Assistant Superintendent Dr. Glenn Pavlicek for putting it together. As interesting a read it is, I'm sure it took quite a long time to get to the finer points in that. And I would also...
Should recognize Lisa McDonough.
Oh, and Lisa McDonough, thank you very much, Lisa.
And Amy Dexter for finding a prototype that we could work with.
Oh, great, thank you, Amy, Amy Dexter. Thank you to Member Eberhard for doing the heavy lifting on that for finance, and reading it in its extreme detail and in its entirety. It was, and Margaret did find it interesting, so I wasn't blowing smoke on that one. It's fascinating. All right, so I'm going to make a motion to accept the grant internal control manual.
I will second that for you.
Thank you, Margaret.
You're very welcome.
Is there any discussion of that?
I will say it is helpful. I work with grants, and so I found it interesting and helpful to me to sort of see. I had never seen one before, so I did ask questions. I thought it was interesting from that perspective. If you work with grants, it's actually pretty helpful.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great.
So can I just ask, in all the years I've been on, this is the first time it's ever come up, so it's just something that the auditors may mention that needs to be best practice?
Exactly.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Well, I'd like to find something for us to do.
All right, so any further comments or questions? I'll call the vote. All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. And then we have the vendor warrants to approve, and they are. I'd like to make a motion to approve vendor warrant number 24, payable December 12th, 2019, in the amount of $211,009.64. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? That's 4. All abstaining? That's, 5 in favor, 1 abstaining. I'd like to make a motion to approve vendor warrant number 25, payable December 19th, 2019, in the amount of $404,312.54.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we can pass facilities on to policy subcommittee. Dr. Donahue.
Thank you, Chair Varela. So we have 2 policies for vote this evening. The first is our former grade 1 assignment policy, retitled our program assignment policy. And to those at home, and as a refresher, so the highlights of the changes to this are we're updating the language substantially to accommodate for our increased number of elementary classrooms at all of the schools. We are updating it to give us flexibility to move pupils around who are in the English innovation pathway to either leverage partial classrooms or as the space dictates require in the next few years. And we are adding some general language that permits the superintendent to move students around when it is in the best interests of that student or the district. So this will be a vote this evening. Any final comments? All right. So all in favor of our policy JGA, program assignment? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our second policy for discussion is our equal educational access.
For the minutes, did someone second that? For the,
Oh,
Thank you.
I seconded it.
There we
I
go.
did it really quietly.
I appreciate that.
Sorry, we're kind of in
Uh,
a haze here.
Educational access, we have added pregnancy and pregnancy-related conditions to this. And again, this is a vote, so I'll move approval of our, or rather, I'll move approval of our amended policy, policy JB, equal education access.
Second.
Thank you, Chair Varela. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have approval of minutes. So, we have in front of us approval of November 6th, 2019, school committee meeting, and November 20th of 2019.
And the retreat, right?
in August 5th.
We
Yeah.
don't do that in I thought we
No.
did executive session. I apologize.
No, that was,
That was
That
an
was an
open
open meeting?
meeting,
I
yeah.
apologize. Okay, and also, the revised, minutes from the retreat, August 5th, 2019. So, I know that, Maureen sent these out via
Yeah.
email for everyone to look through. Does anyone have any changes, comments, et cetera?
Oh, there was just one small typo in one of them that I was gonna hold on to. It's the first one.
And Chair, while the Vice Chair is looking for the typo, I will not be able to vote in the affirmative for the retreat minutes, so if you want to break up the motion.
Oh, okay. That's right.
Did I buy enough time?
All right, so I'm just
No,
going,
thank you. Kevin, you could have, oh, I have found it. I found
okay.
it. Okay, so it's on the November 6th ones.
Uh-huh.
1, 2, 3, 4,
The number, no, no, no.
7, the page 7. It was something I said, and it's just the difference between moral and morale.
Oh,
So
yes.
it's just an E ended on moral in the paragraph where it says, Dr. Craig had also thanked the site council. That's it.
All right, well then, I'm gonna make, I'll split this. I'll make a motion to approve, I'll do it in order. So I'll do the date of just the August 5th retreat minutes. Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of the revised minutes for August 5th? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 5, and 1 abstain. And then for November 6th, 2019 with the correction, and November 20th, 2019 with the correction. Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Awesome. Okay, old business, I forgot to mention at the start of the meeting, that I would like to offer a moment of silence in memory of Mary Ellen Burke. She was a beloved longtime first grade teacher at Collicott School, and she also served as the Collicott assistant principal during her tenure. I knew her as a Collicott, I have to say, I knew her as a Collicott parent. She was just a lovely, lovely woman, a wonderful teacher, well-loved by the Collicott community. I just thought she was a gift to our district, and our thoughts are with Mrs. Burke's family. Just grateful that my kids were able to experience her presence there. Really, really a great woman. So if we could just have a moment of silence for that. Okay, thank you. And next, we are going to move into an executive session, so
Oh,
I'm going.
Chair,
Next meeting.
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I'm sorry, I forgot that, okay.
No, normally, we, I just,
Yep.
where the select board is going to be, I believe it's the select board among other boards, that'll be entertaining the comprehensive permit for the ice house project.
Uh-huh.
And they are in the process of gathering feedback. I didn't know if you would be interested in talking to the chair of the select board to seeing if they would be interested in our feedback, or if you thought that that would be something that we would be interested in doing.
Dr. Craighead?
First of all, they're having a meeting tonight at the same time that our meeting is being held, so it's, at least I believe so, because I know there was a conflict, so I couldn't attend it. So, for that reason alone, I wish we could give our feedback, but I do think, given the impact, I think it's supposed to be 54 units that we're
54.
looking at now, and if we calculate that out, we were just talking about maybe 10 families moving in with 3 kids. If we're looking at 54 units, I think that we need to give some sort of feedback from the school committee on what impact it might tend to have on the schools.
So I'm sorry, was this a select board meeting tonight or the planning, it was select board?
It was a select board hearing.
Yeah.
They have applied, the owners of the property, actually they were under a purchase and sale, the prospective owners of the property have applied for a permit with Mass Housing to get approval to offer it as a 40B complex. The town has 30 days to give any response to that initial request of Mass Housing. So the department, I attended a meeting of department heads last week where we talked about some of the issues, and we're giving the planning department some feedback as to what they might put in their response. Once that goes to Mass Housing, and presumably will be approved by Mass Housing because of the number of affordable apartments in Milton, they would then go into a permit process that lasts 6 months. So we will have time to talk to the issue, even if we can't be there tonight. But yes, there's going to be open a permitting process. If it's approved as a 40B, there is limited ability to deal with it from a town perspective. They would not need to go to the planning board. They would only go to the zoning board of appeals. And most of our zoning ordinances would be waived. There are some that would not be, as it abuts the pond. So there are some federal water guidelines that they would still have to preserve, so we would have to look at things like that. So it's not completely wide open. But yeah, there's going to be a process. We will have till roughly August to give a town response. So I assume even if we're not there tonight, there'll be multiple opportunities to present. But we should talk, they are only a few 3 bedrooms, but at the meeting I argued that a 2-bedroom is the future home of someone with a 4-bedroom house in Milton who is downsizing, and that 4-bedroom house then becomes
Yes.
potential more children for the school.
Yes.
So while they were saying, well, it won't have a lot of effect on the schools, I disagreed on our behalf.
Thank
That
you.
it really depends on the number of internal town moves into a complex like that.
So to Dr. Donohue's point, though, do you think that we should reach out to, so it would be the select board then, yes?
The select board, well, the town through the select board and the planning board, the planning department to the select board is going to give the initial response to the 40B application, which is due in a week or 2. After that, it'll be the zoning board of appeals,
Not the select board?
not the select.
Correct. So, Chair Varela, my intent was, I know, or at least I believe, the select board was contemplating asking for an extension of the initial period that they had, given the timing at the end of the year, et cetera. And while we typically don't tend to comment on planning board matters and other things like that, as most of our discussion tonight has sort of revolved around the topic of the overcrowding in the schools, it might be worth us injecting ourselves into this conversation.
So do you think
The extension is till late January.
Yes.
So do you
They were
think,
granted 2 weeks because of usually it's only 30 days.
Yeah.
And it came in 10 days ago. And so that we've been granted through later January to
That's
make a
great.
response on behalf of the town.
so do you think the best next step for that would be to reach out to, I could reach out to Chair it would be still the select board then, in the month of January, not the zoning board?
Not the zoning board in January.
Right, so if we reached out and maybe even asked if I don't know, some could attend our meeting, or that we have a joint meeting. I mean, we've done joint meetings with them before, say that we'd like to just discuss this issue due to enrollment and just give our input with regard to our concern for it. I mean, or should we ask if we can just go and present at Citizen Speak at theirs, but to let them know that we do want to be able to kind of speak to the issue?
I think those are both excellent ideas, and I'll leave it to the chair's discretion,
Okay,
to communicate with the other board chairs in town
Okay,
and,
all right.
and
so,
guide us.
oh,
but-
got Ada, then I can.
Yeah, I would think that, and I know there's a formula that I think, is it NESDEC that uses, that calculates how many kids they estimate for 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 1-bedroom units that we could bring to apply to whatever the
Yeah,
plan is
that's
at the
excellent.
Ice House. But I almost think that we need to put together a response statement like this
Yeah,
that we can use for every time another development comes along the line,
Mhm.
because there are quite a number of
Yep,
them,
yep,
probably
yep.
10
Oh,
or so
yep,
in the pipeline
yep,
that could have a lot of new development in town. And I think it would be just to have a template of,
Exactly.
based on, what is proposed here, this would be
Mhm.
the impact on the schools. And I think Dr. Pavlicek's point about, it might not be just the families moving in here, but the
Right.
impact on
on the open houses to be
downsizing
bought.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
that are all important points that we should be the ones to make.
Okay, so, well, I'll make it an action item that, I'll reach out, to Chairman Zulus to try to figure out, meeting-wise, what we should do, whether we go there, they come here, we do a joint, and report back in the new year in January. And, in the interim, Glenn, maybe we'll work on that response, like, that Ada spoke to, which I think is important. Would be part of our impact statement presentation, but something that we can use for any and all issues that come that way. Okay.
Part of it is too, you have to look at issues that, should it be built, what impacts would you require? So for instance, if it comes to pass that there's a project of whatever size at the Ice House, would we as the schools heavily want a crosswalk right at that point?
Right.
Students are not going to walk down to Canton Avenue to cross the street and walk back to it, nor are they going to walk to Blue Hills Terrace,
Right,
cross the street and come back to it.
right,
They're going to cross right there.
right.
So, I mean, there are those sorts of mitigations too, as well as saying it will be hard on the schools. We know that, but we also have to say, what would make it, assuming it's built, what would make it less onerous? What about the pathway to Pope's Pond? Will that still be open space? Will that still be publicly accessible? How will, would you want that pathway to have a crosswalk when it comes to along Pine Tree Brook on the other side of the parkway? All those different features. What about
That
the
would be
major
sad if it
trees that
wasn't.
are in front of it? Granted, they're falling down, but, all of those issues are issues that the initial town response is gonna talk to.
Did this happen very quickly?
40Bs can happen very
They-
quickly.
Because I
Yes.
feel like,
Yep.
the first I ever heard about it was it was on the Times, the cover, that there was a meeting tonight. And I thought, oh, there's a meeting tonight, but the Ice House, haven't heard that in so long. And then to hear this, it feels like it came out of nowhere after all those meetings that we went to about the other development that we hoped for.
Well, the history was, of course, there was a planning unit of development there that the town meeting voted,
Right,
that involved a smaller number of
yep, yeah,
apartments and a commercial space.
Yep.
And basically, the owners were unable to find a tenant for a commercial space of a
That
limited
size.
size.
Yeah.
Now, would the town be willing to go back to them and say, well, we can rewrite the planning unit development to give you a larger commercial space? And maybe that would, there's gonna be negotiation. I mean, this is certainly the first
Yeah.
step in a long process of, developing that property. And the question is, how is it gonna come out? And the more, it's gonna be a long discussion process. This first 30 days is simply to say, they would qualify for a 30B based on the size of the property, the accessibility of the property, and so forth. They've put out some initial design plans, which are not particularly, you can see them on the front page of the town website. It looks very much like an apartment building along
Blue
the
Hill
parkway.
Parkway.
It does not at all fit with the parkway. So there'll be talk about that in the response as well. That, you know, currently you can see back to the barns at the ice house, and you have a nice view back into the property. This would look like a 3-story apartment building, the width of the property. So it would look very much more urban than it currently looks. And that's a concern the town is going to address in the initial response. But that's going to be more at the zoning board of appeals level and the negotiation later on. But you're right, I mean, we have to get involved with this.
Yeah.
It shouldn't go on without our comment.
And to Member Rosemarin's point that, you know, I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of the conversation now, but, you know, we as a board do not involve ourselves in a lot of the business of the other boards, and I think they're appreciative of that, and I know that we are appreciative of their restraint as well. But as, you know, as certain things come to a head, it may be helpful having a policy letter when it comes to, you know, developments of a certain size, or when it comes to land use questions, commercial versus higher density residential, or things like that. So this might be a good time to open those avenues of discussion as to how we can better assist the other boards in town and vice versa.
Right, yeah, excellent point. Thank you so much for bringing it up and addressing it.
Well,
So
that's just really sad.
action item, definitely for us, okay. So our next meeting, topics, our next meeting is it the first, is it not that first week when we're back from the new year, or the week of the 8th?
8th.
Yeah. So maybe have
January
an
8th.
update on when we could potentially meet, communicate that with them. I'll put that under my chair's report in January. Any other items?
Can I just ask you,
Yeah,
wait,
go
I'm
ahead,
interrupting
yeah.
you. So, January 8th is our next meeting, is that what you're saying? And then what are we meeting on the 22nd after that?
Yep.
And then the 28th and the 29th?
Yes.
Yes.
The budget.
Yes.
You've got it down, Margaret.
We'll see a lot of each other.
And I don't have the packet in here, but items for that 8th meeting?
We didn't put it in.
Yeah, we
so
didn't
I'm
put
gonna
it
get
in.
back to you with it.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, the agenda will go out, and any changes we can talk about there, all right? All right, so I'm now gonna make a motion to adjourn from our regular session and enter into executive session for the purpose of approving minutes and discussion of negotiation strategy, union personnel, and not to return to open session, but to adjourn directly from our executive session. It is a roll call vote. Member White? Yes. Member Rosemarin?
Yes.
Member Varela, yes. Dr. Craighead?
Yes.
Member Eberhardt?
Yes.
And Dr. Donahue? Yes. Okay, we're adjourned.